Hey y'all, it's Nori. I want to show y'all how I went from this to this, which I thought was the final render, but bam, to this. This was the final render. So rendering does not have to be a hard process. So essentially rendering is just adding those realistic features and those highlights, those shadows to make your image that you drew look a little bit more real, right? So here it is. This is what we're starting with. Unfortunately, I didn't record the whole drawing process and I just remembered to record the rendering part for the final render. So here we are. This is what we're going to start with. A key thing to remember with rendering are these three colors: red, purple, blue. When I render, these are the main things that I think about, or the main colors that I think about. Red for blush to show that your person is alive. Purple and blue for shadows, okay? So all I do essentially for my rendering process, keyword my rendering process, is go in with an airbrush. Now, depending on what you're rendering or what part of the skin you're rendering, is when you're going to use either a larger brush, smaller brush, more concentrated, whatever have you. So if you can see here on the neck, sorry I didn't record this part already, but the red on the neck is the blood, or the red that I put in on the parts where the skin is thin. There's not a lot of fat, and I just want to show that the person does have blood flow running through their body. So that part I already did. The highlights I already did. If you can see those hard lights on his neck and on his face. I'm sorry. I will re-record another video. But all the highlights and stuff I already did as well. And you can see like the tip of his nose, the top of his lip. I already did those. So I'll make a separate video on how to do shadows and highlight placements and things like that. But what I will say is have a reference picture of what you want to do, and it's better to have it in black and white because it shows what where the highlights and things are as well. Now, if you can see, I'm already going in with the purples and going to where I already did my shadows and just adding in purples and blues wherever I can hide in some color. So right along the jawline, everywhere that was already shadowed, right along the jawline, in the ear, right below like the little ear crease, across the bottom of his neck where all those shadows are, I'm just adding in a very light airbrush of purple. And that adds so much depth to the picture and adds so much color to make it more vibrant and make it more interesting to look at versus different hues and saturations of the same color, or different hues of the same color. Now, when I add all these purples and things in, I do go back because some of them are kind of intense that I added in, like right at the bottom of the neck piece. And I took a soft eraser and made it pretty big, and then went over. That's what I'm doing now. Soft eraser, and then going over the pieces that are like, okay, a little bit too purple. Like, because we don't want the purple to stand out, at least for me for this picture. I don't want the purple to stand out. I just wanted to add in some color. Uh-oh, too far. Woo, take a bait. I just wanted to add some color to the picture instead of it just being dark and light. Let's add some variations and stuff. And that can make your picture look a lot more interesting for other people to look at. So if you have issues like with rendering, or what you think looks good, or why does your picture look flat, my one piece of advice would be to add some colors: red, purple, blue. Remember that. So if you just saw, I clicked the screen. I took one of the filters on and off, or one of the layers on and off, to see what it looked like, because I needed to add some more highlights, and I'll show you that in a second. But look right here, this whole thing is full of purple. But when you zoom out, you can't really tell, but it adds so much dimension to the picture. Now I'm going to go in and focus on the forehead area in the face. So for this area, I mostly wanted to focus on adding a little bit of color to the purple, or to the forehead. But what I will say is, I think I might have overdid it a little bit in hindsight, looking back at it, and I'm a beginner. I'll say that. I should have said at the beginning, I'm a beginner renderer. Okay. Beginner. And I just found some videos and stitched together Frankenstein some tips that people gave. And this is what ended up working for me. Okay. Again, I definitely have a long way to go when it comes to rendering, when it comes to drawing, period. Okay. But we're just focused on rendering right now. I don't need nobody else to criticize me. I criticize myself enough. So we're just adding in some purples here. I already had a little bit of purples added in already. Like on the nose, I think I'll go back in with the soft eraser and kind of erase that area a little bit because it's looking a little intense right now. And right now I just went in with the eyes. And yeah, when you take a step back, you can see it's purple. Okay, so let's go on with the eraser. Let's erase it a little bit, do a little bit of cleanup, and go from there. But again, remember, if you remember anything I said to you, purple, blue, red, okay? When it comes to finding like highlight colors, you really have to find out what's complementary to your character's skin tone, because a peach or a pink is not going to look very flattering on darker skin tones. It's going to look very washed a little bit. It's going to look very washed. So it's important to find those purples and those reds that make that blush look better, or find the golds or the yellows or the oranges that really complement browner skin tone or darker skin tones. And that is essentially what I did for this. And then when you see like all the highlights, like on the eyebrows, on the nose, on the ear, I just took a airbrush, made the brush size smaller, and made the density. My density for my airbrush is always low, okay? But I made the density low and then just slightly just went around. And this is what it looked like when I first started. When I thought, oh, I ate, this is perfect. It was not perfect, okay? And just another tip for those of you who are trying to save your eyeballs, so y'all use the eye comfort shield or the eye care on your tablets or your computers, on your phones. Please make sure you turn it off when you're adding your highlights and shadows and things, because what that does is it makes your screen warm, so it makes it look more saturated. And when I clicked it off, when I was finally finished with the whole thing, I said, what is this? It looked like somebody drained all the color out of the world and put it on my canvas. So make sure you turn it off, which is essentially why I had to add a filter, a hue and saturation filter on top of whenever this is finished. I already added a hue and saturation filter, and this is how I did that. You go to layer, new correction layer. Oop, go down one more. Boop, there it go. Hue, saturation. And then you can adjust the saturation, which is the only thing that I adjusted for it, because I needed to make it more warm as what I was looking at when the eye comfort shield was on. So yeah, you just adjust the saturation. You can adjust anything you want on here. It's a free world. And then, yeah, that's how I got this final piece on here. But anyway, so this is essentially how I do my whole process. I know it was a lot and I talk a lot, so I apologize. But this is the whole video. And then here was the before and this was the after. And then I just merged all the layers down. But stay tuned for the next video on shading and highlights.